Good morning, and welcome to the Africa Weekly Talk. Today's subject on the docket is Africa's richest man and the world's richest man, Aliko Dangote of Nigeria, goes Maga. Aliko Dangote of Nigeria goes Maga. Make Africa great again. But fellows, before I dive into this subject today, I have to go back and piggyback on a segment that I did on Maga, Making Africa Great Again, about 6 months ago, when Donald Trump first came into office and talked about America First policies. And I did a segment that time talking about how African countries and the so-called third world countries can also take the same playbook from Donald Trump and make their country's first policies, as well as make Africa also great again. Because when Donald Trump came out with this America First policies and he started getting USAID and talking about defunding World Health Organization and other world institutions and so on and so forth, you had all these liberal media in the West, especially in America, and also some in Africa and Asia, all talking and hollering and, creating all this hoopla about Donald Trump getting USAID, Donald Trump, doing this and Donald Trump doing that, and out of that, people are going to die out of hunger and people are going to die out of lack of medicine from the United States and the United States not funding these programs and so on and so forth. And I said, hold on, fellas. What Donald Trump is doing in the United States of America is what the United States of American citizens elected Donald Trump to do. So let's pump the brakes, fellas. Donald Trump is doing exactly what the United States of American citizens elected him to do. I mean, go back 2016. Everything that Donald Trump promised during his campaign, when he got into office, he did exactly that or tried to do it. So looking back 2024 on his campaign, Trump wasn't going to do anything different. Everything that he promised he's going to do, Trump is going to do it. Looking at the history of Donald Trump doesn't mince words, fellas. He doesn't mince words. And he already started doing it. So when I heard all this liberal media and African media especially, talking about Trump, they had a media in Nigeria, I think Arise News, always talking about Trump. They had some people on their panel, everything that, they had this Trump and deranged syndrome, always criticizing Trump and so on. So I said, hold on. What has Trump doing in America got to do with you in Nigeria? Focus on what you can do better in Nigeria and help make Nigeria great or Africa great. That is what we have to focus on. So, fellas, a friend of mine sent me this Afrism conference summit that they did in Nigeria a couple of days ago, where Aliko Dangote, Africa's richest and the world's richest black man, had a sit-down interview and also went full Maga, talking about how he also supports what Donald Trump is doing in America, because Donald Trump is trying to create jobs in America and help make America great again. So why don't we also Africans also make Africa great again? Apparently, Aliko Dangote listens to my program because I did this thing 6 months ago and talked about it. So let's go ahead and hear what Aliko Dangote, Africa's richest man, had to say in that sit-down interview. And I'll come back and dissect and give my opinion. So let's go ahead and hear what he had to say. All right, let's see what we got here. Here you go. Here we go here. Let's see what we got here. All right. Aliko Dangote.
Make it is, talking about make America great. Now we have to turn into make Africa great. The one way for us to make Africa great is for us to produce our minerals before they are exported so that we can actually create jobs. Because the issue is that once we remain a dumping ground, we will never be able to create jobs. And, I'm of the believer that once you continue to import, you are importing poverty and exporting jobs out. So the real issue for us is that now President Trump has actually set the face where he's saying make America great or America first. So since it is America first, we should also say Africa first. We should try and create jobs. The real reason why we have actually not flown as much as Asia, Asians, they have quite a lot of old entrepreneurs, old money, and majority of them, they believe in their own continent, be it from Thailand, Indonesia, and other areas. So most of them, they invest their money at home. Both people who have made money legally, people who have made money illegally, the money doesn't leave the country. They invest it there.
So you're saying that's what we're lacking in Africa, right?
Well, in Africa, the issue is that, yes, some people, they do make money legally. Some of them, they make their own money illegally. But majority of people, they take the money out of the continent. So if I'm not investing at home, how do I convince somebody to come and partner with me and invest and make Africa great? It's difficult.
It's key from their people.
When Trump always say, okay, fine, make America great, what he's trying to do is actually trying to create jobs. Some people might not agree with me, but I fully agree with him because I've been through that route where now we try to do industries and they keep saying that, no, open up your market. When you open up your market, it's like you now going to bed, you open up your windows, you go to bed, you are not going to be, you won't be able to have a good sleep because you'll be disturbed by mosquitoes. So, when you now say you open up this thing, you don't have what it takes to allow every single damn thing to be dumped into your own market. That's what you call a fair competition. That's also what you call dumping. Okay, because if I have excess, I will take it at half price to go and dump in somebody's market. So I make sure that the country does not produce what they need.
So what I find fascinating with what you're saying, because one way that people are describing things, it's like becoming a lot more protectionist, which is bad. But actually the way you're saying it is that we shouldn't be a dumping ground, and there's a distinction.
Let me give you an example.
Between the two things.
Let me give you an example. He has done quite more than that. People maybe know about the steel, aluminium, where he ended off, he tried 25% tariff, and then later on he said, no, 50%. If he doesn't do that, American steel industry will shut down.
It's true.
The two things that don't allow industries to thrive, especially in Africa, there are two things. One is lack of electricity. Second is inconsistencies in government policies.
So let's talk about the policies that need to change. And I actually go back to the way your cement business flourished. And then President Obasanjo took, I think, what many people consider as a bold decision. And it wasn't just a tariff on imported cement at the time. It was quite interesting because it was about backward integration if you do import.
That's right.
So, and I really want to unpack that, because I wonder if you can scale that idea across other sectors and whether that's workable as a policy.
Well, as a policy, what President Obasanjo did was actually, great. I mean, Obasanjo at that time when he was president, I think maybe he sleeps about 2-3 hours. He called me 4:30 in the morning. and asked me that, hey, look, Aliko, I've checked. Nigeria now is about number 2 in import of cement in the world, after US. I'm not going to allow that to continue. How do we address this issue? I said, okay, fine. Let me, Mr. President, remove my Dangote cap and put Nigeria's cap, and I will tell you what to do. Maybe, why don't you say, okay, let's go and do backward integration. If you don't set up a factory, you cannot import. So all of us, we now run to set up industries. I know that our bankers were very small at that time, and but we went very aggressive. Nigeria was producing totally 1.9 million tons, and we started building a plant of 5 million tons at the same time. But all our bankers were very, very supportive, and we carry on with that. But fast forward, what's the benefit of that policy is that today you don't have to import cement, you can buy cement. Nigeria from 2007 to date, Nigeria produces more than 60 million tons of cement.
And is the largest exporter.
And now also Nigeria is the largest exporter of cement in Africa. Thirdly, as we speak, when we finish our Itori factory, it's 100% for export, and Nigeria will not earn less than $500 million of just exporting cement.
Brilliant.
That's great.
Let's shift focus to the refinery, because you're exporting jet fuel to the United States, correct?
Not only to Asia,
but to Asia as well.
Asia.
I mean, that's such a feat. Nigeria's exporting jet fuel to these major economies and fertilizer to the United States.
Yes, actually, 37% of our fertilizer goes to US.
I mean, that's incredible to think about, because it shows what actually can be done.
Yeah.
And, you know, this was a mammoth project. We've spoken about how a Herculean task it was for you. And I wonder how it's going from an economics perspective, financial perspective, and whether, looking back now, because it's always every single year, there's more hindsight. Was it completely worth it? Would you do it again? What's your answer this time around?
Well, I think I will do other things again. But like what I said, when we launched the refinery project, luckily for us, we actually didn't have a full idea of what we are doing. If we knew what we are going to go through, we wouldn't have tried it. But it's good that we didn't know. So that's why. So at least we've been able to, deliver. But it was really tasking, humongous, and I must say that without the support of our bankers, led by Afrexim Bank, the Access, Zenith First Bank, it wouldn't have been possible at all.
So, let me ask you this: what's your biggest challenge that you face right now? You know, buying of crude in Nigeria, selling off takers. What is your biggest issue, and how does that speak to pushing African champions locally? Whether you felt that you've had that support. I want you to give me a sense of what that experience is right now.
Well, the issue is that we African champions, we need to understand that we are the only people that can make Africa great.
Yeah.
Nobody will do that for us. So as such, we need to make sure that we concentrate. We believe in our own continent. Of course, there will be ups and downs here and there, but life is all about up and downs, and sometimes, yes, you succeed, sometimes you don't. But majority of us, once you concentrate, you really know what you are doing, you'll be successful. It's difficult, and you don't really expect anybody to hail you. People who made America great, it is only now that people are hailing them. But at the time when they were really pushing, trying to create all the Vanderbilts, the Ford and Co., nobody was hailing them at that time. So it is very difficult. for people to hail you while you are doing things. But on hindsight, when you look at it, people will now appreciate. You see, the job of people like us is it's not about really amassing wealth. It is about creating wealth.
Yeah.
How do you create wealth? You create jobs, you make sure that you expand the economy. Other investors will see what you are doing, and they will also join. Like what I keep saying, majority of our own countries, especially in Africa, they keep going around to look for foreign investors. Foreign investors, they just don't come that easy. So what you need to do is to encourage domestic investors. When they are doing well, that is the invitation for international investors.
I want to talk about the global geopolitical.
All right, fellas.
People, I'm trying to think of a
So
different.
now you heard it from the horse's own mouth. Aliko Dangote, Africa's and the world's richest black man, talking about Maga, why he believes that what Donald Trump is doing is good for America, and Africa also have to take that same playbook and make Africa great again. And you heard him talk about dumping, manufacturing. I mean, talking about how Africans have to invest in manufacturing instead of allowing goods to be dumped onto the continent, because as much as countries continue dumping onto the African continent, that means African continent cannot produce anything, no manufactured production, and we cannot invest in any of those areas. All we are going to be doing is importing poverty and exporting wealth to other countries. And I know what he was saying was pretty much in reference to the Chinese policy. Because you go to most African countries today, you look around, everything that we consume on that continent today is from China. So at the end of the day, we are the ones that have enriched the Chinese and made the Chinese economy grow and continue to grow and grow and grow. Because at the end of the day, we buy from China, manufactured and goods products. And so we don't produce anything. We don't even produce toothpicks on the African continent. That's a shame, fellas. That's a shame. So when he's talking about make Africa great again, the Maga and the Africa First policy that he was talking about, he was basically saying that we also have to focus on doing these things, creating manufacturing products on the continent for Africa to be great again. Because Africa can never become great sitting down in Africa and expecting somebody else from China or Europe or America to come and put money on our continent and expect our continent to grow. It ain't happening. At the end of the day, it has to start from home. And he touched a little bit about corruption. Where you talk about the level of corruption where people steal money on the continent and take it outside to go invest in Europe, America, Asia, and pretty much now Dubai, because of the money that they have stolen. They cannot keep that money in the various African countries. So they have to go and hide it in Europe, America, or Asia. And in some cases, even when they die, their families don't even know that they've stolen money and hidden them in these countries. And I remember 2016 or 2017 when Donald Trump made that statement of shithole countries in Africa and other parts of the world. And people criticized Donald Trump. Some people called him racist and all that stuff. And so Donald Trump was pretty much alluding to the same thing. Because I remember one of the speeches that Donald Trump made, and he said that you have these so-called poor countries around the world where their corrupt leaders steal money from their various countries and then come and put their money in American banks, European banks, and Asian banks. And these same idiot leaders come to us to ask us for loans that our banks use their money to loan it back to them and charge them higher interest. And this is what Donald Trump said 2017 or so when he made that statement of shithole countries. He was alluding to the fact that African leaders, the corrupt leaders, will steal their own country's money, and instead of keeping their money in their country, they don't. They send it to Europe or bring it to America and Asia and now Dubai. And they're building these countries whilst their countries continue to be poor. And then they turn around and come to the West and ask them for money and beg them for money, beg them for handouts. And that is what Dangote also said in a later segment, talking about how corrupt or people who steal from Africa don't invest that money in Africa, but rather they send it outside, to Europe or America and so on and so forth. So, fellows, you just heard from the greatest African industrialist in in our era, and him alluding to the Maga, make Africa great philosophy. There's nothing that makes me happy more than that, because at the end of the day, like he said himself, nobody is going to come onto that continent and make Africa great other than Africans. It is only Africans who can make Africa great, and it starts with good leadership. You're not going to have great country without good leadership. At the end of the day, people can talk all the talk they want to about Donald Trump. But what Donald Trump is doing in America, whether you agree with Trump or disagree with Trump, he is doing what is in the best interest of the United States of America. When he imposed the tariffs, I did a segment on that one too. Today, look how much money the United States government is taking in from tariffs. Billions and billions and billions of dollars every month. And people can't even believe it. I mean, the so-called economists who are all about, oh, Trump is doing this, Trump is going to destroy American economy. American economy is still going great. There's nothing going on that Trump has done that is not making American economy. And they just passed the tax bill. The tax bill that was just passed, which was a good bill. Because, I mean, you had all the criticism coming from liberal media talking about Medicaid, which I get it, the work requirement that some people don't agree with, but which I agree with. There's nothing wrong asking people, able-bodied people, to contribute to your economies. By the end of the day, if you look into that bill, average Americans will benefit on that bill. I mean, talking about no taxes on overtime, no taxes for tips, no taxes on social security, and all these things. No death tax for inheritance and all that stuff. Come on, fellows. So, fellows, if it's Sunday, it's the Africa Weekly Talk. God bless you guys and have a great week. Thank you and peace and love.